Chapter 5, verses 101 through 138. 101. Truly, it is rightful for you to prevent one another from committing the misdeeds that you wish to commit, because verily you should not commit misdeeds, neither bloody deeds, murder, nor Gewaltsamkeit and battle, war, and neither pillage, atrocity, nor destruction. 102. Truly, many amongst you are unfair ones, irresponsible ones. And you see to it that you take similarly equally unfair ones, irresponsible ones, for your friends, so that you may be one and the same, of the same kind, amongst one another, so that you can iniquitously carry out with them the unright, false deeds that you have planned in advance, thought up, thought out, hatched. And by doing so you create displeasure amongst the fair ones, responsible ones, and lay yourselves open to punishment. 103. And if all amongst you were connected to the truth of the laws and recommendations of the creation, then you would accept the true teaching of the prophets and their words and signs, marvels, evidence, that they reveal to you. So you would not take the false prophets as your friends who beat you into godly, religious, servitude, bondage, because you are disobedient to the truthfully teaching of the truth, the teaching of the Spirit, the teaching of the life. 104. And if you heed people of your kind, fellow human beings, with open eyes, then you will certainly find that it is not those who are assiduous in the truth who are the ones that see to foster all the terrible things of the world and bring about battle, war, jealousy, hatred and revenge, retaliation and greed, death, ruin and destruction, as well as hardship and misery on the world and all people of your kind, humankind. Rather, it is those who pray to gods and tin gods and who crawl before all kinds of godly, religious and sectarian, priests and servants of gods and servants of tin gods who place images of gods and tin gods at the side of the wellspring of all life, creation. And truly, it is without doubt those who are not connected to the truth of the wellspring of all life, creation, and those who say that they stand in friendship with their god or tin gods as godly, religious or sectarian believers and only carry out what is imposed on, commanded for them through their Godhead or their tin god. And they believe that their false prophets and priests and other servants, hands helpers, of gods and tin gods are savants in gods and savants in tin gods, which is why they are slimily subservient to them. 105. But if they hear the truth and understand it in the wise that it is explained by the teaching of the prophets, then you see their eyes flood with tears because of the truth that they recognize, see. And they raise themselves up then in modesty in order to prove themselves as witnesses to what the teaching of the truth, the teaching of the Spirit, the teaching of the life reveals. 106. And truly, why shall you not make the truth of the primal wellspring of all life, creation, and its laws and recommendations your own as people of your kind, human beings? After all, you do deeply wish that your life were formed, characterized, in this wise so that you may count yourselves amongst the right-minded ones? 107. And for the sake of what they wish and strive for, they build in their inner nature gardens as a reward, through which flow the streams of love and peace and freedom, of consonance, harmony, and of knowledge and of wisdom. And if they are steadfast, then they will remain there for all time as a reward, because they do good and follow the laws and recommendations of the primal wellspring of all life, creation. 108. Those, however, who persist in unknowledge and reject the signs, evidence, of the laws and recommendations of the primal wellspring of all life, creation, they are occupants of the shadow world, hell, that they have created in themselves, the fire of which consumes them from within. Therefore they are unsatisfied and do not bear any true love in themselves, neither any consonance, harmony, peace, nor freedom. 109. Therefore be concerned to give fullness, sufficiency, to the truth, so that you do not do things that are not permitted to you out of righteousness, conscientiousness, and equitableness, fairness, and virtue, and do not turn things that are permitted to you through righteousness, conscientiousness, equitableness, fairness, and virtue into something disallowed, forbidden. And do not exceed any law or recommendation that has been created by people of your kind, human beings, so that you do not come into dispute, conflict, with the authority, with jurisdiction, or with your next ones, because infractors of any things whatsoever are always unpopular, and their infractions, illegalities, lead to hostility. 110. Truly, you will never be called to account for your good thoughts and deeds and works. But even one imprudent word can create hostility and hatred. And false vows, false oaths, bring you defilement and punishment, because if you have sworn falsely, sworn a false oath, with intent deliberately, then you will be called to account. And if you swear an oath in righteousness, conscientiousness, for something, then keep the vow and give it fulfillment, so that you give a sign, set an example, through your own honor and amongst people of your kind, fellow human beings, and so that you yourselves may be thankful. And truly, a vow shall never be broken, just as a pledge, promise, shall never be broken, because it is a word of honor, and whoever breaks the same casts themselves into defilement, into dishonor and disrepute, discredit. 111. Know that wine and all other fermented juices, alcohol such as beer, spirits, etc., shall not be allowed if they are drunk beyond good measure and to drunkenness, because in drunkenness you lose your control over yourselves. Therefore drunkenness lightens the tongue, makes it unrestrained, and leads to babbling and dignitylessness, as well as the disclosure, betrayal, of secrets. Continuous drunkenness also leads to vice and to illness, pathological craving, of the body, both in the inner world consciousness, and in the slings, viscera, kidneys, liver, etc., as well as to seeing through delusion, dipsomania, delirium tremens, methymania, enomania, and to agitation, nervousness. 112. And know also that gambling leads to illness, pathological craving, as do images of gods and images of tin gods, godly cult objects, and the belief in gods and tin gods which you transmit, pass on, to your descendants, and so they are beset, affected by them in Gewaltsamkeit already at their procreation, so that they fall prey in their lives to a godly, religious sectarian belief, assumptions, from which they can only escape with difficulty. Avoid illness, pathological cravings, vices, which you yourselves create, because they are disgusting and shall be an abomination to you, because they are a work of evil that you create and keep, nurture, in yourselves. Avoid all these terrible things, so that it shall be well with you. 113. Truly, the evil that you create in yourselves, also through wine and all kinds of fermented juices, alcohol, beer, spirits, gambling, and godly, religious belief, assumptions, only creates hostility and hatred and excites terrible vices, pathological cravings, and thoughts in you, so that these become sick, manic, and destroy your inner world, consciousness, and your psyche, and therefore you shall refrain from them. 114. And as you are stricken by illness in your inner world, consciousness, and in your psyche, the more you wander about aimlessly and create further evil in yourselves, such as hatred and jealousy, hostility, pathological craving for revenge, and the urge for retaliation, so that then you kill and allow battles, wars, to break out and destroy everything that people of your kind, fellow human beings, have brought forth, created laboriously during their life. And as you behave in this wise, you put unright before right. Therefore you are not helpful to one another, but kill, murder one another, and deceive, lie to, slander, calumniate, and defile, dishonor, in any wise that is possible to you. In your wrongdoings, you assume, believe, yourselves to be strong and embitter, torment the weak ones, in contradiction to the recommendations of the primal power, creation, that the stronger one shall help the weaker one. 115. Therefore, it is recommended to you that you pay attention to the laws and recommendations of the primal power, creation, and be on your guard against the evil that you are creating in yourselves. And if you are not on guard against yourselves and against everything evil and terrible that you create in yourselves, because you have fallen away from the laws and recommendations of the primal power, creation, which have been taught to you by the true prophets, then do not blame them, because they only bring the clear proclamation of the message of truth and are your teachers. But what you choose to make of the teaching is purely a matter of your assiduousness, your own concern. Truly, no prophet can change you and turn you to the better, because you are only capable of doing this to yourselves if you heed the signs, evidence of the teaching of the truth, the teaching of the Spirit, the teaching of the life, and follow them yourselves. 116. Truly, it is not enough to appear kind-hearted, to look good before people of your kind, fellow human beings, and to have yourselves raised up when you do good deeds in order to bedazzle, befool, and to make yourselves great and important, because good deeds are only of value if they are truthfully done in kind-heartedness and love, in upright and deferential dignity. 117. And as you shall do good in uprightness and in venerability of the dignity towards people of your kind, human beings. So the same applies to animals and all creatures and everything that crawls and flies, and therefore do not kill any game, any animals or other creatures that you do not need for your food, except if it is sick or injured and would otherwise die in suffering. Then you shall kill it and release it from its torment. But you can also kill animals and other creatures for support, gamekeeping, and care through hunting, so that no excessive number, population, comes about through which harm would be caused to people of your kind, human beings, and to animals and other creatures or to the world, nature. If, however, robbery, poaching, is conducted in any form, then the fallible ones shall be brought to the authority or jurisdiction for punishment. 118. Animals and creatures of all kinds, of the land, the air, and the seas, and other waters are permitted for you as food without distinction, except those which are harmful or poisonous to you as nourishment. And if you are on a journey, then the same rules, regulations apply, namely that you may use for your provision, food, all animals and other creatures that you can slay, hunt, in the same wise as all animals and other creatures that you have at your home, and for your purchase, income, and for your provision, food, whether they be poultry of any kind, cattle of any kind, horses or pigs, sheep and goats, dogs and cats, or whatever else serves as your food. However, you shall not prepare your food simply from the flesh of animals and other creatures, but also from fruits and vegetables as well as herbs and grain cereals, so that you have provision, nourishment, and reasonableness, balance, and so your body and your slings, viscera, intestines, are kept undamaged, healthy through a good maceration, digestion. 119. And the primal wellspring of all wisdom, creation, created its laws and recommendations for all firmaments, universe, and earths, worlds, planets, for all animals and other creatures, for all people of your kind, humankind, and for all reality existence. And all this has been taught to you through the teaching of the prophets, so that you may be knowing, conscious in all things, and pay heed to the primal wellspring of all wisdom, creation, and its laws and recommendations. But think, be aware that the prophets are only your teachers and warners, and the proclaimers of the message of the truth teaching, which they make evident to you, so that you may learn from it, and may undergo a change in yourselves to the better. 120. But no, the true prophets are strict teachers and warners, but they are benevolent and forgiving. Therefore you never need to fear evil from them. And simply through their kind-heartedness, their teaching, and their warning and forgiveness, you shall recognize, see, that bad and good are not the same. They are different, even if the quantity, amount, of the bad astonishes you. Therefore learn from the true prophets, and become understanding ones, so that it shall be well with you. 121. Do not ask the true prophets for things which you cannot understand, because if they were revealed, explained, to you then they would cast you into confusion, although nevertheless many things are revealed, disclosed, to you when you ask a true prophet if there is one present with you. However, he will only reveal those things to you which you can understand without you being cast into confusion. Truly, it is not given to you to take more knowledge than your true discernment, intellect, can accept. 122. Truly, already many before you have asked for more knowledge than they could accept with their true discernment, intellect. But then they failed in their knowledge of the truth and became confused in their inner world, consciousness, because they did not consider the affliction, danger, that is concealed in excessive knowledge which cannot be accepted. 123. The teaching of the truth, the teaching of the Spirit, the teaching of the life from the truth of the laws and recommendations of the creation does not contain any lie or any slander, calumny, nor does it contain anything that would be unrightful and of iniquity, unfairness, or unrighteousness, consciencelessness, or unvirtues. Many amongst you who, however, fabulate, invent lies against the truth. You do not make any use of the power of your insight, discernment, because you have fallen prey to dull idleness, laziness, and to unwillingness against the truth. 124. Truly, it is wrong of you to think that what you find, receive handed down from your forefathers and foremothers, ancestors, forebears, is sufficient and rightful, because what has been revealed to them of the teaching of the truth, the teaching of the Spirit, the teaching of the life was defiled, trodden underfoot by them, So they did not have any knowledge and were not led. Therefore you only find, receive handed down from them unknowledge, unvirtues, and unrighteousness, consciencelessness, as well as delusional teachings of false prophets and falsified writings of the scribes and priests of gods and tin gods. 125. Therefore it is recommended to you that you do not follow the old sources, books, writings, that are retained for you as guidelines, traditions. Rather search for the truth yourselves, so that you may find it, and do not fall into confusion, and do not harm yourselves. And truly, if you are looking for the truth, then you will find it in the truth of the laws and recommendations of the primal power of all creation, which is given to you through the teaching of the prophets, which reveals all those things to you which are of great relevance, importance for you, so that you may understand, follow, and conduct care for them. 126. Learn and do everything the same as the true prophets, as they already turn to the teaching of the truth, the teaching of the Spirit, the teaching of the life at a young age, in their childhood, and strengthen themselves in their inner world consciousness, with kindheartedness and love, and with the nature of the deference as well as of the wisdom. And do the same as them who learn from the cradle onwards, and talk to people of your kind, human beings, and teach the writing of wisdom at a young age, and at an age of having grown out of youth, adulthood. And do the same as them, the true prophets, so that you may learn the truth, and carry it further to people of your kind, fellow human beings. And do it like in the allegory, comparison, of a figure that you create out of clay, and remains lifeless until you breathe life into it. Because the unknowing ones in the truth are the same as a lifeless figure made of clay, which only awakes to true life when it is struck by conscious of the truth. 127. Do not allow yourselves to be deceived by false prophets and false teachings which are of such a nature that their falsehood, deviousness, is not evident, but only becomes obvious, recognizable, through true discernment, intellect. And do not allow yourselves to be deceived by wondrous signs from false prophets, because their signs, apparent evidence, are only a delusion and acts of trickery, legerdemain tricks, in order to deceive you and to make you unfree, in bondage, through their false teachings. And if false prophets awaken the dead, then they're deceiving and lying that the dead are dead, although they are only unaware of themselves, unconscious. Therefore the false prophets do not do the same as the true prophets who teach that they only awaken ones who are lying in torpor, apparent death, back to wakeful life, because truly once a person of your kind, human being, has entered into death, died, then there can no longer be any return to life. Therefore, the false prophets and all who do the same are deceiving you with false miracles, absurdities, and magic, which is only acts of trickery, legerdemain tricks, and has no might, as is also the case with the magicians, mages, practitioners of legerdemain, sorcerers, practitioners of suggestive spells and acts, themselves who only practice deceptive acts. 128. The false prophets teach lies and claim that they have been given great knowledge, and that only they are the ones who know, have knowledge of, hidden things, but this is not at all the truth, because they are as unknowing as all the unknowing ones. However, they are able to beat you into servitude, bondage, by lying and deception, so that you also fall prey to their lies and slanders, calumnies, as well as to their false words and teachings, because they can give false signs, magic tricks, by means of magic, legerdemain, and other deceptive acts, which you accept as truthfulness, although they are only lies and deception. 129. And do not believe them when they lie, saying that they are the envoys of a god or tin god, or their sons or daughters, born by mothers of people of your kind, human beings, because whatever is born to people of your kind, human beings, on earth is also created by people of your kind, human beings of earth, or by people of your kind from the firmaments, people from the universe. And truly, because there are no gods or tin gods who could create the firmaments, universe, outer space, and the earths, worlds, planets, and the lights in the firmament, celestial bodies, because they are only fabulated, invented insubstantialities, therefore no people of your kind, human beings, can be created from them, as they cannot either copulate with, impregnate, women of your kind, human women. But whoever teaches differently has maliciously fallen prey to lying and slander, calumny. Truly, it is only people of your kind, human beings, who can raise themselves up in falseness, deviousness, as gods and tin gods, and raise themselves up above other people of your kind, fellow human beings, and copulate with, fertilize, impregnate, Your women. Not, however, the fabulated, invented, and unsubstantial, imaginary gods and tin gods, or their fabulated, invented power of the spirit body. Spiritual power. 130. And the formation of all things, creation, never induced, influenced, through one of its laws and recommendations that you must turn to its truth or the teaching of the prophets. Because if you do this, then you are doing it out of your own decision and out of free will, so that you witness yourselves, that you integrate yourselves in uprightness into the teaching of the truth, the teaching of the Spirit, the teaching of the life, and take the goblet of the truth as your guideline. Signposting leading thought. 131. Do not desire to eat, learn of the false fruits, teachings of the false prophets, but heed that you only eat, learn of the good fruits, teaching of the true prophets, so that you will get a part of all the food, truth, of the teaching of all firmaments, teaching of the whole universe, and create true love and wisdom in yourselves, as well as peace and freedom and consonance, harmony. 132. And truly, the teaching of the wisdom and truth of the laws and recommendations of the primal power of all life, creation, sends you a table, teaching, spread with food knowledge, so that you may learn, and that every day may be a day of festivity for you, whether you are the first or the last, so that you set the signs, evidence, of the truth in yourselves, and you are your own providers, source of supply, for knowledge, wisdom, and the truth. 133. See that you bond yourselves to the teaching of the truth of the laws and recommendations of the primal power of all existence, creation, so that you are knowing, conscious, in the truth, and you do not deteriorate in unknowledge, and you do not bring forth, create, punishment in yourselves, and do not grieve. 134. Truly, since time immemorial the true prophets have spoken to you and brought you the teaching of the truth, the teaching of the Spirit, the teaching of the life, and taught you that you shall not place either one or two gods or 10 gods next to the primal wellspring of all wisdom, creation, and the same for supposed sons and daughters of gods and 10 gods, because the primal wellspring of all wisdom, creation, is superior, sublime, over all people of your kind, human beings, and over everything that you dare to place at its side. All that is honorable, venerable, is the primal wellspring of all wisdom, creation, and placing gods or 10 gods or fabulated, supposed sons and daughters or representatives, substitutes, at its side is a disparagement, contemptibility, beyond compare, and a matter of shameful abjection. Therefore never do, say, or teach the same, because you have no right to do so, since it is a lie against all truth. 135. Do not teach anything other than the real truth as is taught to you by the goblet of the truth, the teaching of the prophets, and make prayers, invocations, edification, to your inner world consciousness, so that you only present, dedicate yourselves to the truth, and follow the words of the prophets, who are witnesses to the truth, and whom you shall respect for as long as they remain amongst you. Because only for that time are you able to hear the words of wisdom with your own ears, and have them as guardians over you. Because when they die, then they will disappear as warners for you, and you can only bear witness to their existence, life, and activity, and carry the witness forward into the future by carrying forward their teaching of the truth, their teaching of the Spirit, their teaching of the life, and teach it to your children and your children's children, and to all people of your kind, fellow human beings. 136. The time during which a true prophet dwells amongst you is a time in which you can benefit as truthful ones. Righteousness ones equals conscientious ones, fair ones equals responsible ones, virtuous ones, and ones who have knowledge of the truth, from the truthfulness of the prophet at first hand, so that you may have pleasure in learning and create magnanimity, humanity, in yourselves. 137. And it is taught to you another time that you shall never punish people of your kind, human beings, in body and life, or by punishing their psyche, but only punish their misdeeds, errors, and terrible deeds by separating them out to a place of fulfillment of guidelines, secluded place, isolated island, for a certain time where they are treated rightfully in accordance with the law and the recommendation of the creation of all things, creation, and are dealt with in dignity, however they must look to their own provision, subsistence, and to the teaching of the truth, the teaching of the Spirit, the teaching of the life, so that they may become rightful and do rightfully when they return to the people's society. 138. Truly, If you heed and fulfill the laws and recommendations of the creation of all existence, creation, then you have might over all things, and therefore you will one day find the way to all firmaments, the way to the universe, outer space, and to the Earth's, world's, planets, through your progress of your inner world, consciousness, so that you also obtain might over that when you do rightfully. However, even then the laws and recommendations of the creation of all existence, creation, apply in all firmaments, universe, and on all Earth's, world's, planets, because all firmaments, universe, and Earth's, world's, planets are the kingdom of the creation of all existence, creation, and the creation of all existence, creation, has might over everything through its laws and recommendations.